Hello everyone, Kiwi here. Today I'm going to be making a scene from Animal Crossing New Horizons in my pixel art style. I'm aiming for a flat 2D look similar to a side scroller, and of course, I'll be adding my favorite underrated villager, Ozzy. If any of you guys play Animal Crossing, let me know who your favorite villagers are in the comments. Anyway, I figured this would be a good opportunity for you guys to watch me work and see how I do shading and make the piece feel cohesive. So I'm starting out with 3 circles for Ozzy's head and ears, and I'm just going to play around with them and adjust them until it starts to resemble him. I like to start off by making characters first, that way I can figure out what size I want them so that the rest of my scene will be to scale. For shading, I start with an outline of a shade darker around the head and ears. Adding darkness all the way around a round object gives the appearance of the center sticking out further than the sides. I also used an even darker shade on the bottom left of the nose because I'm imagining my light source coming from the top right, so that's where the shadow would be the darkest under the nose. And I'm also adding shading at the tops of the inside of the ears, because if you look at how a koala's ears are, the tips kind of stick out and lean forward a little bit, which casts a shadow inside of the ear. I realized I made the face take up more than half of the available space in the tile, so I'm making copies of what I have so far and scaling down each copy little by little until I find a smaller size that I can work with. Then I'm just going to clean it up, make sure both sides are symmetrical, and try to make it look as much like Ozzy as I can. To start his body, I'm going to start with the lines of where his shoulders would be, where his shirt meets his pants, and where the bottom of his feet would be. That way I can make sure I have his body proportioned properly before I fill in the rest. Now for his shirt, I'm shading the collar and the shoulders since they would be in the shadow of his head. I'm also shading the left sides of his arms, again because my light source is coming from the top right, and because your arms naturally hang further back on your body than your chest and stomach do, so the arms are going to be in the shadow of the torso. I'm also shading the sides of the belly to make it appear rounded. Next, on a new layer, I'm starting on the resident service building, just blocking out the general shape of it and then adding the doors and the windows, and I'll tweak it as I go. It's the same idea here with the shading, that my light source is coming from the top right, so I'm adding a darker shade under where the high points would be and adding highlight to the high points where the light would hit. So I realized when I went to add the pillars in front of the doors that my windows were too big, so I sized them down and created a new layer to start working on the pillars, the stairs, and the triangular part of the roof. The best way to figure out shading is just to study things around you. Where's the light coming from? Where does the light hit the object? Where's the shadow cast? It just takes some time to play around with it and figure out what looks more realistic, but also stays within the boundaries of the art style that you're working with. So when it comes to shading the roofing itself, it's as simple as adding a highlight on top of each roof panel and a shadow where one panel overlaps the next. I can't emphasize enough to you guys how helpful it is to have everything on separate layers as you work. It's so easy to combine layers later if you decide that you don't need them all, but it's difficult and time consuming to try to separate things that are all on the same layer. If you guys are having trouble understanding shading and thinking like, oh, I'm not an artist, I'll just never get this, don't be too hard on yourself. Science shows that when it comes to art, children's brains develop the same way until around age 12. That's when kids either give up on it, either because they think it's boring or because they're discouraged that it's not good enough, or they keep working at it and studying the world around them and teaching their brains to draw what they actually see instead of just what they think they see. For example, if you ask a child to draw a pond with cattails around it, they'll probably draw some sort of oval shape with lines sticking out in every direction. Similarly, if you ask a child to draw a table, they'll probably draw a rectangle with 4 legs sticking out either diagonally or up and down or straight out to the sides. It's not until we get older that we realize that cattails grow up from a pond, not out, and table legs all go down to the floor, not out in different directions. And the same thing applies as we try to grasp the understanding of shading and perspective in our art. It all just comes with practice and repetition. So now I'm creating the message board and of course making it on another layer. Once I was pretty happy with the overall shape of it, I started adding shading around the perimeter of the roof and where the panels would overlap, similar to the roof of the building. I also added shading where the little roof of the message board overlaps the message board itself, and where that overlaps the legs. The frame around the message board sticks out a bit, so that would catch the light on the right sides and cast shadows to the left of the frame. So I had this in mind when I shaded the main part of the message board. When shading the trees, my initial reaction was to want to add too much detail, which broke the style and just didn't look good. So I ended up recreating the 3 circles and shading the bottom left of each one and then reshaping where the top circle meets the other 2, because the bottom 2 circles would overlap the top one. I did this on a separate layer so I could move the circles around to get them the right size, and then when I was done with the shading, I merged it with the original tree layer. Then I just added some highlight to the top right of each circle, some shading around the perimeter of the base of the tree, and then some lighter curved lines to suggest bark. I then added a new layer for the sky, a new layer for the ground, and a layer for the clouds. And I added a shadow under the building and the message board and added some details to the grass. I only detailed the borders where the grass ends, and I did this by placing a few pixels outside of the line on each side, and then replacing the pixel of the original line with either the grass color or the brick color depending on which side of the line it's on. I then added some flowers and a bush, and shaded the bush the same way I did with the circles on the trees. I decided I didn't love the palette I was using, so I changed it to one that was suggested to me in the comments, and I'll link that in the description box for you guys. So I replaced all the colors in this to the updated palette, though I didn't change the color of Ozzy's fur because the palette didn't have any browns that I thought fit Ozzy's color well, so I just left those the custom colors that I had made originally. So I could leave it like this as a side scroller, but I think I want to make it more like a platformer where you see the sides of the ground below the grass, so I'm going to try that. I realize now that I probably should have added the bush and the flowers on a new layer as well, but you guys can just watch me struggle while I move these. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a little bit about how I do shading. If you liked this video and would like to see me make more art from other games in my pixel art style like this, let me know which ones. As always, I had so much fun making this video and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Bye!